Hello everyone, my name is Emanuele and I've just started working on my own game. I'm writing it from scratch in C++ and I've been working on it for about like 3 or 4 days, and the thing is that I wanted to share my experience and my journey with the world. And so today I'll show you how I open a window using the Win32 API and how I handle the messages that Windows sends to my window, to my application. So the first step is obviously the entry point of our application. As you can see, when I am in debug mode, I use the classic int main entry point. This is because I'm compiling my code with the console subsystem. If I were in release mode, I would use another entry point, the win main entry point. I'm using this entry point because when I'm in release mode, I don't want my console. I'm compiling using the Windows subsystem. Now, let's start. I'm stepping through the code using the debugger because I think it's like the best thing to do in this kind of scenario. The true entry point of my program is Fox main. Fox is the code name of my game because I don't even know the name right now. First and foremost, I'm allocating a bunch of memory. I'm allocating a struct. Actually, I fox upstate. My allocation function is basically just a wrapper around calloc. I crash the application if the allocation failed, just because I don't really want to deal with out-of-memory errors, because I wouldn't know how to deal with it since we're writing a game/engine basically. This function is the meat of the situation. Fox start runtime. It takes the runtime state, the H instance, and a width and height. Those are like my the resolution that I want. In this function, this function simply calls two other functions. The first one is register window class, which interacts with the Win32 API. Here you can see that I first register a window class. As a lot of Win32 functions, it takes a simple pointer to a struct, and the struct actually passes all the arguments into the function. This is a win class struct, and it's fairly simple. The style field just defines the style. The H instance, just the H instance would pass in. This is the icon, but we don't really care about it. Even the cursor right now, even the background and the menu name, we don't really care about it. There are only two things that we really care about it, and that's the class name, and that is the name of our window class. Mind me, like I'm saying window class, but it's not an object-oriented thing. It's just the naming the Windows developers choose. The most important thing is actually window procedure. Window procedure is basically a function, so this thing is a function pointer. And this window procedure basically is the function that will be called for every message that for every message that the OS will send to instances of that window class. So, and we'll talk about it later. Now, once we register our window class, it's very simple actually. We just need to create the window itself. Here I'm passing the h instance, the width, the height, the window class name. We need this name because we need to know from which class we are creating our window. We need a window title, and this, we'll talk about this later. Now, I simply define an extended style and a window style. These things, you can look them up on the Win32 documentation, which is really well written. The X and Y are basically the X and Y coordinates of my window, which I don't really define myself. Here I simply compute the real window width and window height, because this width and height are actually the resolution that I want. But the problem is that windows generally have, for example, a title bar and menus. These are part of the window, but right now I'm specifying a resolution, aka the size of what's in Win32 terms is called a client area. So I need to compute the window height and the entire window height and width in order to create it so that my client area has the correct resolution. And that's the mumbo jumbo that does that. Basically, I define a rect, I call this function adjust window rect, passing the styles and saying that I don't have a menu, and then I simply compute the actual window width and actual window height using the data inside the rect that adjust window rect just populated. Now I can finally create the window using create window ex. I pass the style, the window class name, the title, etc. And note that I am passing this thing, and we'll get back to it later. But basically this is a pointer to a buffer that it's my own buffer, and this buffer basically stores all the application messages that are sent from the window, from the OS to the window, and I call them runtime messages because like they are the messages that the runtime, aka the OS and the window, the OS and the user actually generates, basically, are all the messages that are sent from the OS to our application. And I do that because like I want to process the window messages instead of actually passing them as they are to my application. Now I create the window, and that's basically it. If I can't create the window, I crash because I don't know how to recover from this kind of error. Now basically we have successfully started our runtime. Now this is the main loop of our application, which is very, very simple. I have a variable running that is boolean and is initialized to true. While the application is running, I get the runtime messages, and this is the Win32 message pump, aka the code that actually gets all the messages from a message queue that's in Win32 land, and then invokes our window procedure. So for every basically I remove each window message one by one. I translate it, and that's needed for some messages that actually can generate other messages, and then I dispatch the message. Dispatching the message will invoke our window procedure, and basically our in-window procedure will be called for every message that we dispatch. And here we can see basically I'm catching just 3 messages here, and if I don't catch a message, I still want to handle it because maybe I don't want to handle it myself, but I need to handle it. And in order to handle it, I simply call def window proc, which is the default window procedure. Now we see like we start receiving different messages. The most important message right now is the window message create. So we have just opened our window. Wait, what? Why didn't it? Sorry guys. Okay, I apparently just skipped through it, but calling this function, calling the create window ex will actually generate a window message create. And remember that we passed this buff pointer here, and we need to do that, or at least I do this because like I don't want to have global static variables hanging around in my program, so I tend to minimize the singletons that I have, actually the static variables, the global data that I have. So I want to avoid as much as possible having global data, and in this case I just use the Win32 API to pass my user data to the window procedure, and I do this using the create window ex function. In fact, right now when we pass the window message create, the L param will hold a create struct, and inside this create struct I have an LP create params that actually is the pointer that I've passed to the create window ex. So from this one I can get my buffer, and from my buffer I can now set data that is local to our window, and we can do this using the set window long pointer. Now all this code is just to actually check if the set window long pointer a function filled or not, and you can read it like in the Win32 documentation. Right now we simply want to go on. Now we got all the messages. Yep. We got all the messages. Now another thing that actually important right now, I don't post any messages apart from to my buffer, apart from when I receive when the message closes, so we'll talk about it later. Now I simply loop through all my all the messages inside the message buffer, and I check their type. The default type basically is a Fox runtime message none, which does nothing, and I use this because to clear the message buffer I zero out all the memory, and this is the zero value. So this enum has zero, has value 0, so basically I don't have to set them manually. And the application basically keeps going right now. So if I were okay, so if I continue, the application is running fine. I can minimize it, maximize it. Obviously, like there are these glitches because I'm not clearing the window, I'm not doing anything. I'll do that in another episode. I still haven't worked on actually drawing something on the window. Now, when I click the close button, aka I want to close the window, a window message close will be sent to our window procedure. Here, I simply get my user data from the window that we have created, which is basically our message buffer. This message buffer, then I simply post a quit message on my message buffer, and then I do nothing. Here, when I go through all the messages, all the runtime messages, I see that there is one quit message. And in this case, I just spawn a message box, but like in a real game, I would not. I would like send a message to my game that says basically that the user has requested an exit, like the user wants to exit, and obviously the game will act accordingly on it. Maybe it will prompt something, and in this case, in fact, I just show a pop-up that asks if I want to quit. If I say no, the obviously I will clear the runtime message buffer because I need to clear it for every frame. But the application, as you can see, it's still running. Now I click on it, I want to close it again, and right now I will show the pop-up message, and then I want to quit. So right now I set the running to false. Hence, I clear the runtime message buffer for the last time, but then I will just exit the loop and the application will shut down. So there are like a couple of points that we may discuss, aka you may have noted that I allocate memory, but I don't allocate memory. As you can see, there is a to-do there asking if whether I have to clean up myself the application state, or I can leave it. Can I leave it to the OS for it to clean all my resources? And there is another point, similar point, aka I've registered a window class. We have registered a window class but we don't unregister it. And this is fine because it's written in the documentation that all window classes that an application registers are unregistered when it terminates. So we don't really care about it, and especially because I don't plan on creating multiple window classes for my game, because I will have basically one window, so there is no point in doing it. And the last point is like we call create window EX, but we don't destroy the window. And here I haven't found anything that actually says that it will be automatically destroyed, but we can see that when I exit the application, the window the window is actually destroyed, like it disappears. So I still have to read, carefully read the documentation and the Win32 documentation and decide whether or not I want to destroy the window myself or leave it to the OS. Okay, guys, that's all there is to it right now. I simply want to thank you for hanging around till the end of the video, and goodbye.